We're in beautiful Hollywood, California at the Hyundai Ioniq 9 unveiling. Now this is not the Ioniq 9, this is the Ioniq 5, one of the most iconic instant classic cars in the EV era. But it looks nothing like the Ioniq 6, the car over here. So what would Hyundai do for the biggest car they've ever made, gas or electric? Let's find out. And here it is. This is the Hyundai Ioniq 9, and it's pretty similar to what was promised as a prototype 3 years ago. But as their largest model, including their gas cars, this thing's kind of a masterclass in packaging. So here's a quick first look at the Hyundai Ioniq 9. I'm Ricky, welcome to the Fully Charged Show. The Ioniq 9 will come in 3 variations. The rear-wheel drive, which has a 160 kilowatt motor out back, the all-wheel drive, which has a 70 kilowatt in front and a 160 in the back, and the performance all-wheel drive, which has a 160 in front and back. Now, the stated range figures of 330 miles is for the rear-wheel drive variant on 19-inch rims, so depending on where you live and which trim you get, the range is going to vary, but imagine it'll be around 300 miles for the all-wheel drive variant. By the way, you'll notice here this little windshield cover. Obviously, you have your camera and your light sensors, but there's more to it. If you look at the roof of this car, there's no roof antenna. Typically, you'll see cars that have a shark fin antenna on top of the roof for things like GPS and radios, but that isn't here. That has been entirely removed and instead placed in areas like this, or the instrument panel, or the rear tailgate glass. There's that much obsession with aerodynamics, all in the interest of getting as much range as possible from that NMC 110 kilowatt hour battery pack. And thanks to the fact that it's an EV, this wheelbase is the widest of any Hyundai at 3.13 meters or 123 inches. That's 9 inches longer than the gas version, the Hyundai Palisade. And overall, this car is actually 2 inches longer as well than the Palisade, the gas equivalent. But it doesn't feel like it. It feels pretty compact in a way. It hides its size. And one thing we should also mention is that on the inside, you can either have this bucket seat for 3 people for a total of 7 passengers, or you can have captain's chairs. And depending on which market you're in, you can even have the option for swiveling captain's chairs. You can have the chairs in the front swivel backwards, I believe when it's parked, to give you that sense of belonging. All right, obviously the space is pretty good with all 3 rows up. But to fold the seats flat, it's as simple as pushing buttons back here for those 2, and then straps for the back 2. And you got pretty much a full flat floor for all your activities. That's pretty cool. Okay, now let's talk about the interior. First thing you'll notice is that the doors make a fantastic sound. And that's because there's been a focus on reducing noise, vibration, and harshness. All the glass is laminated front and back, and there's extra padding and materials to dampen out the road noise to make it nice and quiet. Also, from the 7 prototype, there were a lot of ellipses on that prototype that were lit up, and they've kind of carried that across. You can kind of see here, circular door handles, and this kind of round here matches here on the back and kind of brings it all together. So they've kept some of that magic. And the parametric pixels carry through with these indents on all the seat backs and even here on the steering wheel. Very iconic Hyundai at this point. Now for the controls, it's pretty conventional and there's a lot of touch. You've got climate control knobs here for the dual passenger climate. You have capacitive touch buttons here, and these are all physical buttons, volume knob, and adjustments and everything else. You have your hazard lights right there. And of course, you've got your touch screen up top. But if you're a person who likes more physical gauges and knobs, you'll appreciate this. This is the drive selector down here, and you've got all your steering wheel controls. And I believe this changes the level of regen here, but pretty nice layout. You've got a camera up here, and you've got cameras out in front of the car because this car has pretty decent ADAS, advanced driver assist systems, to help you with lane keep and laser guided cruise control and everything else. You've got blindside monitoring and all the traditional stuff. One thing that I love, and this is something that I wish every car had, is 100-watt USB-C charging for both. There's two up here and then a traditional USB probably for audio. And you've got two in the back and two in the third row as well. You have 6 100-watt USB chargers. And all of those come off of the high voltage battery system, not the 12 volts. So even when you're parked or other things, you're not going to be running down the 12 volt battery. You'll be running off of the main battery. Again, the parametric pixel layout and design happens here for the soft touch points for the phone, and even here for the wireless charging component. But there's my phone wirelessly charging. You've got drivetrain controls up in here and a pretty nice little center console. Now, higher trim levels will have a full pull-out drawer for the back, and this entire center console can slide forward and aft. That way you can set it to wherever you want to make it as easy to reach as possible. Here in the second row, the language carriers are across. We have your ellipses back here, door handles. What's really nice is the window folds all the way down, which of course it's not working now. I think it's because the car's not on. Windows go all the way down, which is a nice touch. Also, you've got sunshades back here. And these are really big and they go all the way across. I really like that. That's a feature I wish I had. Also, cup holders here and here. You got your Bose sound system, vents up here, and then you got your controls here for your heated seats and all your HVAC controls. Now, depending on which trim you have, if you have the captain chairs, so this is the 7-seat configuration, but if you've got the 6-seat, you could have massaging chairs as well. Really nice touch here is that this inner cabin actually opens both ways. So it's a dual way hinge, otherwise fully flat floor, and really great adjustability for the seats. And like you mentioned, to get into the final row, you hit that button, seat comes up and over, and look at how much room you have. And that's probably a good segue to talk about the seating position test. I'll try to sit behind myself where I would be in all 3 rows. Let's try that out. First seat, this is where I would drive. Again, I'm 6 feet tall, quite comfortable. This is a good seating position. Now, if I were to sit behind myself, I'd be probably right about here. Again, plenty of room. Even if you were 6'5" like Jack, I think you'd fit just fine. Headroom is massive as well. Now let's see how I fit behind myself on the third row. So I don't know if you can see that. My knees have pretty decent space, and that row could go up a little bit further or not be reclined. Let's try that. Let's do a little bit less of a recline. Maybe if I was back here, I'd make my passenger drive like that. And there we are. Now this is pretty normal. I've been in third row SUVs, EVs that have that much room back here. But what's really special is that. So even though they have the roof taper, look at how much room I have back here. Now to give you that good look down the entire cabin of the car to see that boat tail taper, this is probably the best view to do so. You can kind of see just how cavernous it is up top and how everything about the car kind of tapers down. Now really big cars could potentially have a third row with 3 seats in it, but this is more common these days where you have just 2. But yeah, you can kind of see the whole car taper here along the back, but you still have a decent sized opening along the back here. I kind of wish this was a little bit closer to flush so you can get wider things in, but that's going to be pretty awesome. And back here, you've got a 120 outlet, 240 for you guys in the UK. And there's also some really interesting, cool tech that they've got for helping you tow. The American models can pull 5,000 pounds. The UK models can pull 2,500 kilograms, but there's some advanced driver packages to help you with towing. Now, what's interesting about this car as well is that nothing protrudes out. For example, check out this Ioniq 9 logo. It's actually embossed and it doesn't actually stand out at all. And the Hyundai logo up here is obviously just in the glass, but everything is really flat and flush. All the headlights are all behind uniform polycarbonate, and it's all just really flush. The same is true on the front logo as well. It used to be a lot thicker and stand out, but obviously in the interest of aerodynamics, look how flush that is now. It is still a logo, but it's just very flat. Also, this car, I did ask, in North America, we'll have the NACS charging standard, which is huge. That would be, for me, one of the biggest attractions to actually buying a car like this. Now, styling is subjective, and you might love or hate it. That's going to be up to you. I personally think it's a really well executed car. I think it looks great. I'm a fan of it. And in the US, we love these third row SUVs, especially ones where the seats fold flat and you have all that extra room. This is a car that will definitely sell well here in North America. And honestly, from certain angles, it has a little baby Range Rover look to it. So for people in the market for larger cars in Europe, you have another option as well. So that's a really quick look at the all-new Hyundai Ioniq 9. Obviously, styling is going to be your own personal preference. I personally think it's rather good looking and really well carried out. And I love the obsession with aerodynamics. I think it leads to a car that gets really good range for how big the battery pack is. I've always found it really interesting with Hyundai and the Ioniq line not having a uniform design language. The 5 and the 6 look nothing alike. This is probably closer to the 5, but because each car will look radically different, unveilings actually really matter because it'll determine how the next models will look. I also asked them if the concept prototype was the Ioniq 7 prototype, why wasn't this the Ioniq 7? And they mentioned that this being the biggest Hyundai they've ever made, bigger than the Palisade even, this is the 9. And that leaves them room for the potentially 7 or 8. That is a really quick first look at the Ioniq 9. Until next week, check out this video. And if you have been, thank you so much for watching.